rocking the res. Woman like you, times like this, all that's real connects to you. Happy medicine, making me smile, seeing you laugh, getting so real, rocking my heart, rocking the res. Woman like you.
All right, the great John Trudell there, rocking the res. My old friend, I knew John for many, many years. And this is KGUA in Wallala, 88.3 FM. I am Peggy Berryhill, and as you know, this is Peggy's Place this morning on our rainy, not too cold today, but cold enough, along with Jean Berry and Roberta Chan in alphabetical order, but they are my volunteers today who are doing a great job. They're going to be taking care of the station, along with Thane Frivold and Stephen Winningham, when Susan and I take some time off in just a few days. We're going to actually leave the station. I mean, can you believe it? We're going to go away for a little bit. And I have a great guest today. I'm so excited. We're going to talk to Jourdan Begaye. She's Dene, and she is a journalist. She's currently stationed in the Nacotchtank. I'm not sure. You'll have to pronounce that one for me. And Piscataway lands in Washington, D.C. She is the Washington editor of Indian Country Today. What? You don't know what Indian Country Today is? Well, if you don't, you're going to find out. We're going to talk all about it. And we're just going to say, good morning, Mr. Whoops. Our friend John is still rocking there. We got to stop that for just a second. Sorry, John. I'll tell you, that guy, he had an ego, and he's still got the ego, still rocking on. Here we go. Good morning, John is still rocking there. We got to stop that for just a second. Sorry, John. Okay, I'll tell you, that guy, he had an ego, and he's still got the ego, still rocking on. Here we go. Good morning, John is still rocking there. We got to. Okay, how come I'm getting this? Stop that for just a second. Sorry, John. Sorry about that. Okay, I'll tell you, that guy, he had an ego, and he's still got the ego, still rocking on. Here we go. Good morning, John. All right, I think maybe we're out of that now. Oh, had a little loop there. That was John. I'm telling you. Can you, Jourdan? It looks like your mic is your mic on? Say hi.
Yes. Now my mic is on. Hello. Yeah, I've been in. I was trying to wait for the loop to stop, because I was like, I don't want to confuse people.
It wouldn't hurt him if they heard yate more than once.
Yeah. There you go. But good morning. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
I'm doing good, except, as always, a little confusion, but that's live radio for you. It just happens. And community radio, I'm doing great. And it's so nice to say stungo to you as well. And so you're in DC right now.
Yes. Well, I'm based in Washington, D.C. And I'm actually back at home in New Mexico, back on Navajo for the holidays.
Great.
So I'm on the New Mexico side of the Navajo Nation, and just spending time with family. And I'm actually on vacation, which I was laughing and telling my mom the other day. I don't know when the last time I took vacation was. Like, what am I supposed to do with myself? So I'm like, I can help you decorate trees, or I'm reading. So I'm going for walks.
Well, good. Embrace it, because life will take over, and before you know it, you'll be like me and saying, yeah, we're going to take some time off after who knows how many years or decades. So enjoy it. So Jourdan Begaye is, as I was saying, is now the managing editor or Washington editor, of Indian Country Today. Indian Country Today has been around a long time. For those of you who may not be native or not reading native newspapers, founded by Tim Gallego a long time ago. Tim and I, a lot of us started out at the similar times, being journalists, and we're going to talk about why that was so important. I want to hear why Jourdan thinks it's important to become a journalist and why she's doing what she's doing. But first, I want to get back. You started out by identifying yourself in the traditional way. Why is that important?
Yeah, sure. One, I want to know that's who I am first and foremost. I'm a Diné woman. or Diné son. And it's also a way for me to greet my Diné relatives or just even, other Indigenous people. That's who I am at the core. I'm a res kid at the core, so I wanted people to know who I am. And especially when I go into a lot of these like Western spaces, even like media spaces where there are not a lot of like Native, journalists or Native people. So that's just who I am. That's how I operate, and that's what a lot of my values come from.
Excellent. And where you in on the res did you grow up?
Yeah, I grew up in Fruitland, New Mexico, which is known as Inahizad. We're right on the border of the res on the Mexico side. Yeah, born and raised here, my whole life. My grandparents lived next door. They passed on, but I have like relatives all around here. So it's really nice to be back home because it's very humbling and also grounding just to remember, where I came from and just to get away from the city fast-paced life. It's a way for me to slow down and kind of reset and recenter. So
Absolutely. Having lived and worked in DC several times in my life, I know exactly what you mean to be able to get away. Although I live out here on the California coast, which is pretty slow,
yeah.
pretty mellow. We just have a lot of water out there. Many years ago, I was at a community radio, I think, conference in San Francisco, and I had some friends from the KTDB station and KABR station and the Zuni station, and they wanted to see the ocean. So I drove them down what's known as the Great Highway, and we got out of the car and walked down the stairs and into the sand, and they took about 3 steps together in the sand, and then they all locked arms and they went, oh yeah, and they backstepped because that ocean, it was too much being desert people. So,
Oh man, well, I think I'm the opposite. I love the water. Whenever I'm in DC and my mind's going crazy or I need to calm down, I instantly go to the river or even the beach because I don't know, there's just something about the water. It's just so tranquil, and I don't know what it is about it. I just feel immediately calm after that and feel so much better. I don't know. Maybe I'm not a desert kid at heart.
I don't know. For those guys, it was just overwhelming. But I know what you mean. Living in DC, because it is I always call it the belly of the beast. It really is that, and the town hums with whatever's going on at the hill, whether you're taking a bus or the metro or just walking around. So being able to take that walk down the Potomac or go out to the bay was really important, and having I don't know where you're living in, but what Rock Creek Park to go to, just to be able to get away and ground yourself. So where are you living? What part of town?
Yeah, so actually, this is why I was like laughing. I'm like, I don't know if I should say I'm based in DC because I live in Northern Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah, so I live in Northern Virginia, but our offices are in DC. And that's the reason why I didn't know if I wanted to be in the city because one, I needed the space and I needed to be away from the city life. And it's not too bad. I mean, I love Virginia. I live in Arlington, just across the water from the district. So it's very green. There's trails near me. There's a biking trail. And the river's nearby. I can bike there if I want to. It's a beautiful place. I really love it out there, and I do want to be out there, long term. Because it's funny, the first year I went there, and we got the opportunity to move to Phoenix, or I got the opportunity, or at least the choice, if I want to go to Phoenix, to our headquarters, where ICT is at, or stay in DC. And it was a really hard decision for me because I was like, I don't know, maybe, because I was like, I'll be 6 hours closer to home. I could drive home when I want, and there's a huge Native community in Phoenix, but a friend convinced me, no, just try it out, just stay another year. So I did, and now I'm like, I want to stay here long term. Let's go. Let's do this.
Well, good. Well, good. So let's talk about why did you decide to become a journalist?
Yeah, the funny story, I didn't really intend to become one. So this is actually funny. It was one of my interview questions when I first applied for ICT. I was their first staff reporter, and that position opened up in DC, and Mark asked me the same question, and I laughed because I accidentally took a journalism class. And I say accidentally because in undergrad, um, I was focused on athletic training, like sports medicine. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a physician assistant. I wanted to work in an orthopedic clinic and, work in the Olympics because I was a college athlete myself. Um, but I needed it was just very time intensive and just consuming. So I wanted to get a break from that. And I saw this class. I thought it was like a blogging class or a video class. I just saw a course description. So I thought, oh, let me give that a try. Got to class the first day and saw the syllabus, and I saw newspaper media writing. And I was like, what the heck is this? Is this the right class? Did I sign? And I had to I had to look at the course number to make sure, did I sign up for the right class? And it was, and I was so intimidated, but fortunately I had a great professor who said, no, just give it a try. I'll help you out. And I really loved writing. I mean, you should have seen my rehab notes, or just even our reflection journals we had for my athletic training program. They were so long. All my class cohort was absolutely upset with me because our preceptors, that's what they wanted, to have really good reflection journals. And I was like, well, sorry, I just like to write. So I stuck with it and just kind of minored in it. And I looked for opportunities outside the classroom to kind of, in a sense, catch up, because I saw myself as a little bit behind of other people who are studying communications or journalism. So I just looked for a lot of internship opportunities during the summer, or even during the year. I wrote a couple of things for the school newspaper, and I just fell in love with it. I really liked learning, you know, more about the world. I think it really suited my personality. It was just a much better fit. I could talk to people. I could travel the world, which I've been fortunate to travel with ICT the past several years or few years. And I really just like connecting with people and seeing and learning the world through their perspectives, because of course it's much different from mine. But I also like the fact of, the core of journalism is truth and fairness. And those are part of my core values. And so I really enjoy that part of it. And it just allows you to be creative as well. And I guess another factor that added into that too was I grew up listening to Ryan Seacrest, who does the top 40 every Sunday. So I remember in high school, whenever I woke up on the weekends, I would reach over my head and just turn on the radio, and I would hear his voice and listen to his interviews. And I thought that was the coolest job, just because he was able to call up, I don't know, Britney Spears, or I don't know, Angelina Jolie, whoever, whatever celebrity, and just talk to them. And he would be on the red carpet. And so I thought, I want to do that. That'd be so cool. And, and I've definitely been very fortunate to ask tough questions to different artists or just different people in Indian country, and see the cool things they're doing. I think that's the greatest part about it. And it's such a fun job. It's different. Although there is a slight routine to it, there's something happening every single day. And I like being in the know of what's happening. So that's a plus.
So have you called up Angelina Jolie? Or yet?
No. But I've interviewed really great people. I interviewed the first Native astronaut. I've got to ask the question.
Wait, hang on. Let our audience know that, because that's something our audience probably doesn't know about. Who is it?
Is it Jerry Harrington? Yeah. Oh, John Harrington, excuse me. I got to interview him for our broadcast, and he was in DC at the time. And it was just, I love space. I love astronomy. And I was even my mom knows, if once civilians are able to go up to space, she knows I'm the first one to volunteer. And it was just really fun to connect with him and see what his experience was like. And, I thought that was just a cool thing to do. And actually, right after grad school, when I was looking for job opportunities, I was looking at NASA for media internships. I didn't end up applying to it because I wanted to come back home and spend time with my grandparents, but that was something I kind of wanted to do. But even then, there's people like Aaron Yazzie we get to reach out to and talk to him. And I interviewed him a few times.
And
now he
Tell me
And Aaron,
what he does.
yeah, so Aaron Yazzie is a Navajo mechanical engineer. He works for NASA at the JPL, JPL laboratory in California. So he has now, been part of a few Mars missions. Actually, as a friend said the other day, we have Navajo tech on Mars. So that's pretty cool. Somebody from my own tribe who's been part of a huge, exploration of humankind. I think that's incredible. And to know that our Navajo language, NASA worked with the Navajo Nation to create different words associated with Mars. So I think that's just phenomenal. And to know that, our Native youth can look up and see that, and those opportunities are possible, or there's that connection to the world around us. I think it's just really cool to be part of and witness.
Yeah, that is great. And you just said something that just really got me going. Creating new words, apparently, in Navajo to associate with space or space travel. What are some of those words? Do you know?
Oh my gosh, I'm probably the wrong person to ask. I just know Mars was like, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's probably like Maz. It's Maaz, and one of the A's have like a high tone over it. That's literally the only word, but they have like it's an important word.
Yeah. Well, I was just personally, well, if I'm working on a documentary or subject, I can tell you everything about it. But the minute I'm left that area, it kind of, my brain just does a brain dump and I can't remember that much about it. But when I'm immersed in something, over the years, I've got it all right there. But once I go, my brain has to make more space for other things, apparently. So, that kind of happens. I can tell from your enthusiasm and your just joy of learning. Journalism is for me similar to that. I love just the fact that, like you said, you have access to anybody. Basically, you can call them up and they'll talk to you. You can find out about whatever topic it is that you're interested in and find out those other perspectives. But the ability that Indian Country Today brings to you, this digital platform covering the Indigenous world, how did that pull you in? Why did you want to do that? Be part of that?
So it's been for a while now. I actually was an undergrad, and maybe even journalism school. So I attended journalism school at Syracuse University, at Newhouse. And there, I think I kind of refined my goal to work for a startup, or even at first I wanted to start my own company, but that kind of,
a magazine.
excuse me?
I read that you want to have a magazine.
Yes, I wanted to, yeah, exactly. I wanted to start a magazine. I did freelance for Native People's Magazine for a while until they folded. But the fact that ICT was like a great startup company, I knew their legacy and what they stood for. And I read about Mark and I kind of knew him just from other people and through the Native American Journalists Association. And I knew that I was a great fit for it because it was a startup atmosphere and I've worked in that atmosphere before. And I don't know, I think the stars just kind of aligned and I knew this was the right moment. So I applied for it. I got it. And I think just, the mission that Mark set out for the organization, I really like that he wanted to create something sustainable that was, long lasting, long term, and looking forward, not just like the here and the now, which of course is just as important. But to make something last, you have to build the talent as well, and you have to look to the younger people who are also talented and look to them to like carry the company forward. I like the fact that we are we're a service, we're public servants, and so our policy is that our content is free for anybody to rerun, right? But I see it just has a really great legacy, and I'm just really grateful to be part of it. And now, the new role, I'm really looking forward to that as well.
Oh, all right. Well, it's time to remind you, you're listening to Peggy's Place this morning on KGUA. And my guest this morning is Jourdan Begaye, who is Dene, and she's a journalist. She is the new editor at Indian Country Today in Washington, D.C. And being in Washington, it is an, as you have expressed, an intoxicating place to be, because you have not only indigenous people from all over the world, but you have access to so many resources there, so many stories, not only the museums, editors, journalists. It is a wonderful place and very active place to be. Uh, had you lived there before, or what, did you move there just for this job?
Oh no, I moved there just for this job. I did visit there, I think a few years before that. It was for spring break during grad school. My cousin lived in Maryland, and I had my car at the time, so I just took off to DC just to check it out, and I really liked it. Just because it was very, like you said, you just said, there's this hub of people, this hub of talent, just wanting to make the world a better place. There's so much to do there. The food is incredible. I haven't tried all of it, but that's my goal.
Oh, Adams Morgan area, food from every war country in the world is there, and it's great.
There you go. See, and it's just, and I like the fact that anywhere you go, you hear different languages. I wish I was a person who could pick up languages easily, but that's not me, unfortunately. But just hearing it, I think is very incredible. And it's a very transient city, so it's really, and there's always so much happening. Before the pandemic, there were like conferences with Native people in and out every month, and so I really like just meeting people, going to different events, and just checking out and see who's there, who I can meet. I didn't realize I was a very social person until that that came around. I was just talking to people, just learning again. It's a really great place to be, and I'm happy to be there. And I like the fact, like the reason why I wanted to stay there too, and it was more appealing than New York, was they have a building code there. The buildings can't be taller than the monuments. So the
Yeah.
fact that it wasn't as overwhelming or overstimulating, because I could actually see the sky. And again, I'm from New Mexico, where you can see for miles. The land is flat. I mean, there's mesas, but I could see for miles. So that was very, close to home for me. So I knew I could be there long term because of that.
Oh, I hear you. That's exactly the same way I feel. New York is just overwhelming, where you're in these giant canyons and so many people and all of that stuff. And DC was a lot more manageable and a lot more fun and stimulating and all of that. Although, as you're finding out that, on the weekends it's empty. It used to be, practically
Yeah.
empty, and then the real people you get to meet who lives there. You sound like you've got everything you need to be the editor and have your eyes and ears open. What are you looking toward in terms of Indian country today? Well, let me step back again. Why was it important? Is it important to you as a Native person to be a journalist, to write about Indian issues? Why not just go and work for MSNBC or someplace else?
hmm
Or write for-
Um, no, it's a really good question. No, it's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that. I had a okay experience when I had an internship up in New York and Syracuse. I've interned and interacted with like white male editors. It was an okay experience, but just the fact I had to pit write a 3-page paper to pitch a story in Standing Rock, because I was in grad school while Standing Rock was happening, and they didn't see the need for me to go there and travel there and report on it. It just really was disappointing to me, because you have Syracuse and they're building, on Haudenosaunee territory in the heart of Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and they didn't see the need, and they kept asking me, why should this matter to our readers? And I remember just being so upset. I'm like, you have Onondaga Nation 10 minutes down the freeway. You're telling me that this story doesn't apply to your readers? We're coexisting in this world together. And I really believe that, non-Native people who do come, and who also come from affluent families should know what's going on. This is a big moment. And it took a while for me to fight to go there, and I just got tired of it. And so I took off, and I said, well, I'm gonna be gone these days. I will be back. Here's my number. Here's my email. If you need anything, let me know. And I did, write a few stories for them, but just that experience and just like that small fight right there, I just didn't think being in like mainstream or working for a non-native news outlet was for me, because having working at ICT now, we know whenever people pitch stories, we know it's story, just because we know that's an issue or story important to our communities, whether it's a big national story or like a spot story that's focused on a local issue. It's going to apply to anywhere in Indian country, right? So like if you have a story happening in a pueblo here in New Mexico, that's going to apply to somebody or a tribe in California or in Washington State or in the Plains, right? And our stories are so complex and just beautiful, and there's so much nuance in it, but that's what makes it so fun to tell, because it's our lived experience, and our stories are important to our people, and since we lived our experience and that's who we are, we know not to portray like a stereotype, just like mainstream media does, or to not grab the low-hanging fruit of a story that mainstream does. Because I often think that mainstream misses a lot of the nuance in the story. They, of course, because they're outsiders, they don't live it. So, and sometimes it just does more harm than good. And they focus so much on the problem and not the solution. Whereas, part of like figuring out a problem or an issue is looking at the issue itself. A lot of it is looking at the solutions or what's being done about it, and holding people and the right people accountable too.
Well, let me step back to a couple of things you said there, and remind the listeners too that this is KGUA in Walla, 88.3 FM, and streaming globally on the internet. And I'm talking with Jourdan Begaye, who's Dene, Navajo to many of you, and she's living in Washington, D.C., although she's home for the holidays, and she's the Washington editor for Indian Country Today. And I asked her the question that is pretty much an ongoing question for most Native. It's not a question for Native journalists, but it's often a question for non-Native editors. Why are Native stories so important? Because having worked in the mainstream myself also, you don't find very many editors who say, yes, that's a great story, jump on it, go for it. It's like, and as you also said, they go for the low-hanging fruit and they miss the nuances. What did you mean by they go for the low-hanging fruit?
They often go, mainstream goes often for, I think the stories are easy in my eyes. I mean, it's obvious. For example, the one I always hear about is IHS. IHS is underfunded, yada yada. And I'm like, okay, I know that. I've known that since I was like 5. Tell me something else, tell me something new. And so that's what I mean by it's a low-hanging fruit. Frankly, it's just, and whenever I see a story like that in mainstream, I kind of just bypass it, and I'm like, okay, I don't read it. I know I should read it, and sometimes I skim through it, but there's something else that needs to be, we want to tell stories. And I think this is why ICT is so important, is we tell stories that push the narrative forward and that change the overall narrative of Native people. We're the ones who like spin a story forward to, again, just do something different and unique.
The nuance that you're talking about, like if you did a story on Indian Health Service, for example, how would your nuance be different?
So I think the nuance that I provided, so I'll give you an example. A lot of the so during COVID, what happened, I think a lot of people kept saying, reporting that, Native Americans had a high infection rate of COVID-19, and looking at the data. And a lot of my work on reporting focused on COVID data in Indian country. And people were explaining like the why, like why that is, or looking at the underlying issues of why the rates are so high. So for me, we looked at like the structure of IHS and how that data is coming through. So a lot of people don't know that IHS, is one part of the Indian health system, right? So you have direct service facilities that fall directly under IHS. Those are owned and operated by IHS, but also, since the 90s with the 638 contract, a lot of tribes have taken ownership and now operate their own clinics and get funding for their own clinics. And that has affected the way data comes through to COVID data comes through. So like IHS required data from their direct service facilities, but the tribally owned and run facilities, they could voluntarily give their data. So you weren't getting the whole picture, of how COVID was affecting Indian country. But there's also, what about the Native people who go to VA hospitals? What about those who, get paid through Medicaid? What about other private hospitals? So you're not getting all of the data there. What about urban Indian health clinics, right? So you're only looking at, and often I think what mainstream, when they look at IHS, they think, you're looking at the whole picture. You're only looking at a small sliver of it. So you're technically not getting the whole picture, so it's understanding the context and, getting the context there. And that's what I'm talking about, like the nuance, they miss the context of a story, which is often very important.
Yes, I do know what you mean. I often feel today that there's still that one type of Indian, whatever that is, the poverty or coming from a broken home background, uneducated.
Mhm.
And we know that that is far from the truth of who Indians are today. There are so many Indians are doing so many different things. I mean, my goodness, we have one who's head of the Department of the Interior,
Mhm. Mhm.
from your tribe. But those battles in the mainstream are still being fought. But two very public things have changed. Of course, one, Deb Haaland, who's a great example. And then, of course, on the mainstream media, there's res dogs. Have you watched Res Dogs? And what do you think about how that's resonating through the nations?
Yeah, I watched Res Dogs. I loved it. I'm actually writing a profile about Willie Jack. I absolutely loved her character. My mom were watching it and she's like, "What?" It's so funny. I remember in the living room and I was like, "Yeah, I have to watch this, Mom. It's so funny." And she's like, "Who does she remind me of?" And she's like, "She reminds me of our neighbor." And I was, because it was true. It was very true. There's definitely been a lot of mixed reviews, and I understand why. But also that's the life too. Sometimes, I mean, that's what Sterling said. This is portraying different people in his life, where he grew up. So some of it's going to be true. The IHS thing, yeah, was a little bit, a little bit harsh, but I've had experiences like that. It's a mix of good and bad.
That
Um,
receptionist is in every clinic.
yeah, exactly. But and I also had really great experiences where I didn't have receptionists like that. But it's hard to tell, and with script writing or even like telling stories like that to a TV show, it takes years. It takes a lot of like brainstorming and thinking, and thinking who's gonna watch it. And I think the idea I try to toy around with too is like with movies or shows like that about Native people. I've always wondered like how filmmakers or even just like artists or even like journalists, writers, the creatives, what's that happy medium we can shoot for? About creating something that's for Indian country, but also something that's going to be very appealing and informative and educational for non-native audience. And I think Res Dog has definitely done that. And they did that by ways of like trying to find little nuggets that non-native people can resonate with, that any human being can resonate with, right? And it's so funny. It's hilarious. And I think everybody connects on humor. Native humor is so unique. So I think, I really liked it.
Well,
I,
you know,
I
a lot of that is filmed around where I was born and did some a lot of my cousins live, and, you know, Sterling and I were both Muskogee. I don't know
mhm,
him after all these years, but, and you talk about the jokes, there's a lot of language jokes, and I was watching it with a Seminole friend of mine and my partner and his partner, who's Tewa, and we anyway, there was a I'm not gonna say the word, but there was a Muskogee word in there, and I just couldn't believe it. It was like we just fell out like, "Oh my god, did they just say that on TV?" And so those kinds of things that, some of the nuances yeah, I mean, I love it. I like the, other goofy one about the alien. I like that one too. And,
mhm.
you know, Rutherford Falls is a whole 'nother thing, but, you know, for decades, and, just, you know, for me, becoming a journalist and working at NPR and doing all the projects I've done over the years was about breaking down stereotypes. And I
Mhm.
found it, almost impossible, you know, in teaching classes to non-Indians, Indian history to non-Indians, and, you know, realize at the end of it, they all wanna say, "Well, why do you guys own casinos?" Or, you know, it just goes back to all those stereotypes. So I think ResDog has done a lot toward, in a sense, normalizing us, and yet, of course, it's a narrow genre in some ways, but it is so funny. I
Mhm.
just absolutely love it for all of those reasons. So, you know, you've been talking about that in terms of nuance and why you're, you know, the editor that you are that has driven you. What else do you think it's going to take to change the average citizen's image of Indians?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
um, there's a lot of room for improvement. A lot of it is just, keep doing the work that we're doing and also investing in young people. I consider myself a young person.
I was gonna say
um,
young, yeah.
yeah, I consider myself a young person in a, Indian country context. um, it's going to take a lot of work, but I think even now society is recognizing we are very talented. And as we've always known, and we say there's indigenous excellence and brilliance that exists out there. And there's so much room for us to grow and be seen, and for our voices to be uplifted. So I think it's just going to take a lot of collaboration, a lot of collaboration. That's what we do too at ICT. We're very big on collaboration. And I think newsrooms are becoming more the norm for that and building partnerships and sharing content, which I really like to see. And it's really phenomenal to see too. I mean, and we even tried to do that through our ICT newscast with Leah Chavez, where we talked to different, or they, excuse me, they talked to different Native journalists from around the country from different outlets. And some I never even heard of. I'm like, whoa, where'd you come from? You exist? Hey, like we should meet up. So this is really neat to see that. But heavy in collaboration, but also not just collaboration with other Indigenous media, Indigenous journalists, but also finding allies too, finding the right allies who are very genuine and sincere about uplifting Indigenous stories, and just being seen and being validated by them. I think there's a right way to do it, right? We like partnerships where we are involved every step of the way and not just the last step, like reading over a story and marking a green check mark. I mean, that's not the right way to do it. It's gonna take a lot of work though, but I think I'm a huge on, trying to invest like in the future also. So I hope to create a lot of like internships or fellowships through our organization and working with universities and mentoring young people too, because we need more. For the entire time I've been with ICT, I told Mark at least like 2 to 3 times a week, we need more writers, we need more reporters. Even up till now, to when I was up to my managing editor position, I kept telling him we need more writers, we need more reporters. And it's still true to this day. So it's going to take a lot of work, but it's possible. I'm really excited to collaborate with more people.
Let me take a moment out to let the audience know that Jourdan keeps mentioning the name Mark. She's referring to the great Mark Trahant. Well, this is a non-Indian audience primarily, although we have some Pomos and other people who listen online. But Mark Trahant, who's been a journalist, I've known Mark since he was 17. And, I know, I'm a little bit older than you, but so, but this passion for journalism and excellence that he's been looking for and working toward all these years. And so for him to step aside, he's got other projects we know he's working on as well, because he's a journalist, and we all have so many other projects we want to work on. So I just want people to know he is Shoshone Bannock from Fort Hall. So you can look his name up if you want to know more about Indian journalists. But you were talking for a moment about, you mentioned the term allies, working as allies. Now that's a term that keeps being thrown around in the past couple of years. And there's, one-page documents, what it means to be an ally. And, people say, I want to be your ally, or we should be allies. What does that mean to you?
Mhm. Allies, are the people who are given the mic, but then hand it off to, if you're talking in terms of Indian country, if an ally is a non-native person or non-indigenous person who is handed the mic, they step back, give the mic to an indigenous person, and get behind them and say, you speak, this is your platform, and so I'll be here behind you, supporting you. I think that's what an ally is. It's not somebody speaking for a community. You have a lot of people, you have a lot of non-native journalists who are going to non-indigenous experts to talk about Native people for stories, which I think there are so many Native experts, who have lived that experience, who, got the requirements or the qualifications or education to be speaking on whatever they're, meant to speak about. But allies are just the ones who center Indigenous voices and center the Indigenous experience too, because we're the ones who lived it, right? We're the ones who not only lived through the traumas and the triumphs, so we're the ones still trying to pull our communities with us in whichever way we go, and to try to do the best we can for them. I mean, that's why I'm doing this job. That's why I like it. So yeah, I think that's what allyship means to me. And also just, collaborating, I guess, like collaborating in the right ways, and it just depends. It is, I mean, I think that's the umbrella way of me of saying, like, they hand off the mic and center Indigenous experience and voices. But, there's going to be a right way to do it depending what you're doing, right? Depending what field or industry you're working for. One way, another like broad or bird's eye view way of allyship, and a lot of people are doing land acknowledgements. And there are different views about that too, right? Some people say, yes, go for land acknowledgements. It's amazing. You're recognizing the people who live there. Some people say, yes, but also that's not enough. That's like just talking the talk. You also got to walk the walk too. So not only say, you're standing or you're operating from the ancestral homelands of the Diné people, but also saying, that they're still here and living today. They still exist in these spaces. They're doing amazing things. But also, like, you have to have action behind that as well.
That's an excellent point, because we do hear a lot of the land acknowledgement, meaning we want to thank the original people here as if they're not here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
In cases they might not be, but for the most part, yes, we're still here and we're doing a lot of amazing things. So what beyond that acknowledgement can be done? I mean, you've mentioned some of them. I mean, would subscribing to Indian Country Today, for example, is that something that's a step forward?
Yeah, you can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can subscribe to our newsletters, read our work, share our work, watch our, the ICT newscast with Aaliyah Chavez. And I love our newscasts too. They're depending, they're on PBS stations in 37 states and also in Canada and Australia, which is pretty amazing, right?
Right.
But they have really excellent guests on there, and I'm always learning something. I'm always learning something new. And you know, it's just a great, if you want a wealth of knowledge, I would say watch our ICT newscasts. But it's also online if people don't get it on their local PBS stations.
Excellent. I didn't know that it was online. I mean, we carry National Native News and Native America Calling every day, which people love here in our
Mhm.
area. Although you rarely hear about the Indians around here, Pomos and some of the other tribes around here. But it's been a wonderful resource. People actually do, as you know, love learning about Indians. And for whatever it is that brings them there, but they stay, and we're happy about that. So where do you see Indian country today in a year? We'll keep it simple, a year.
Well, thanks for keeping it going out a year. It's gonna be, I see us just still thriving. We're growing. I'm still amazed at how, we had maybe 3 to 4 employees when I first started. Yeah, three to 4 employees, like as a company as a whole. If you're looking at editorial, we had 3 of us. But now we're, I think, around like 30 employees, part-time and full-time, and we're looking to, expand in the next year, and develop an internship program, and just really, look at to invest in young people. And I'm looking forward to like all of the long-term projects we're going to be doing. I mean, like you said, again, what you referred to earlier, Mark Trahant, who is the editor now up until the end of the year, and his new role will be editor at large. He is going to be working on, or going to be the lead correspondent for an Indigenous economics project, which I am so excited for. Mark's just so brilliant, and I love like the ideas he comes up with. And that's just been an area that hasn't been explored in depth. So I'm really excited to see what comes out of that project. And then, there's just like a lot of cool projects that are going to be happening. We're still in the brainstorming phases right now. But for example, this past year, we worked on a long-term project focused on the 50th anniversary of the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act. And so that's the legislation in 1971 that pretty much, Congress placed upon Alaska Native people. It's Megan Sullivan, who is the correspondent and managed that project, did a phenomenal job on it. She is, I can't even say her tribe well. I'm sorry, Megan. I think she's Cayucan Athabascan, if that's right. So she worked on that project. She just did a really great job on not only looking at the past and like how that legislation has affected Alaska Natives as a whole, but also looking at the future, and seeing what can be done, or seeing, what obstacles or challenges are going to be coming up in the next 50 years. So there's a lot to be looking for in a year. A lot could happen in a year. I mean, again, a lot happened in 3 years. I mean, we could be in almost every state for our newscast. Who knows? There's a lot of
you said a couple of things. I mean, talking about, let's take the ANCSA special that you did. We were earlier in the conversation talking about why it was important for Native journalists to tell their own stories, and there would be some old school editors who would say, oh, those Indians shouldn't be doing their own story about ANCSA. We can do it, or we can do it better. What's wrong with that picture?
If Native people shouldn't be reporting on Native issues, I think white people shouldn't be reporting on City Hall or the presidential election.
Yeah.
If we want to be frank about that. So, I think objectivity is unrealistic. It's impractical, but I do think we can be fair in a story, right? We're all going to come with our biases, but in order to, be fair in telling the story, we also have to recognize our own biases, right? And so that takes a lot of awareness and reflection. Yeah, I think that's my spiel on that.
A lot of good spiels going on here as an editor. I'm really happy to talk to you and meet with you. We just have a few minutes left here, so I do have to go back to something we didn't talk about at all. Are you still playing volleyball?
Oh my gosh. I really wish I was. No, I'm not.
And
I've
I'm
been
asking,
trying, well, of course, COVID's happening now, so I haven't been to a gym in what, like,
I'm asking Jourdan this question, folks. I'm talking with Jourdan Begaye, who's the editor of Indian Country Today. Uh-oh, she disappeared on me. Come back, Jourdan. But she actually went to school on an athletic scholarship because she apparently loved volleyball, and which has led her to be a journalist, and clearly a great journalist at heart here. So I was just wondering if she was still playing the volleyball now and then.
I no, I wish I could. I was trying to play a few pickup games before COVID happened, but now it's on pause. I do have a volleyball. I play in my apartment every now and then. I shouldn't play in my apartment, just like my mom says, don't play in a house, go outside. But I like I've definitely have really bad knee problems. I had a few knee surgeries, so a lot of it I've just been focusing just on and just strength training, and as long as I can go up some stairs without too much huffing and breathing, and I could dance. Just I love dancing. I think that's what kept me sane through the whole pandemic. I think I'm good. I do that. I do miss volleyball though. It's really fun. I definitely that has really shaped my life.
Okay, so I'm gonna follow up on something you've been saying throughout the our conversation here, kind of put you on the spot, but you keep talking about the focus on youth, and which is important. I agree with you. But what about the role of elders in and I'm specifically talking about what are journalism and how are those two groups going to meet?
I think what I really like about Alaska Native, I don't know if people have heard of the Alaska Federation of Natives. They have this annual convention every year. But before that convention, there's like a small, I guess, like branch off convention or conference called the Alaska Elders Youth and Elders Conference. Excuse me. It's my holiday brain coming in. It's the Elders and Youth Conference happening. This is a time where those two groups meet up and talk and like collaborate. So I definitely see and hope a lot of that happens. I mean, it's already happening at ICT, right? A lot of our leadership, our elders in, again, Indian country context. Like Mark has been.
What does that mean? You said in Indian country context. What is it?
Just because some people, don't like again, like some people, I don't know. I feel like we have this like category of Native youth. You're considered a young person. I feel like the Western society sees you as a young person up until you're maybe like 18 or early 20s. Then after that, you're an adult. But Indian country, I feel like you're a young person until you're like in your 30s. And then you go into like a pre-elder phase. And then you go into like an elder phase. So there's a bit, there's a larger age range. And there's a lot of like factors affecting it, but that's how it works in my head. So that's what I
got me laughing here. Great. Yeah. Cool. Good.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes everything, isn't it? I mean, traditionally to whatever. What was that? Some digital dirt happening here. But anyway, well, it's we just have a couple of minutes left here, Jourdan. So really enjoyed meeting you and talking with you and talking about the direction Indian Country Today continues going on, and how do people let people know how they can read Indian Country Today online?
Yeah, sure. So people can read Indian Country Today by going to our website, indiancountrytoday.com. You can access it from your phone or on a desktop or an iPad. You can also watch the ICT newscast with Aaliyah Chavez online as well. And you
What
can
time?
also check. It just depends. Oh, usually if it's online, it's uploaded around 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Time, excuse me. And on PBS, you have to check your local PBS station and what time it airs and if it's in your state. So that will vary.
Great. Great. Well, I'm sorry to say I didn't know about it. I will definitely check that out, especially if it's on 3 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah. Well, you guys, and you actually
Incorporate it.
rate for radio people or people who like podcasts. I mean, it's uploaded to our SoundCloud, so you can listen to it from there while you're on the drive or commuting. Radio stations are free to download it and maybe take it and reshare it. We have, the headlines for Indian country at the top of the segment, and then there's interviews throughout the entire half-hour show.
Do you know what today's headlines are?
I don't know. I had to my day's a little bit mixed up, so I haven't gotten to it yet.
You're back home. It is the holidays, and all of that is going on, but for everybody. And then now Omicron we're waiting to see what that's going to do to the world. Now, just as we all thought it was sort of safe to start coming out again, now we've got another thing happening. So anyway, so you got 1 minute left. Anything you want to share with the audience before we take?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited just for this new role and to see, where this organization goes in the next year. And again, I love our newsroom. We're so talented and there's such compassion for what we do, and we do it for our communities. So that's the last word.
That's the last word from Jourdan Begaye, editor, Washington editor of Indian Country Today, now a digital newspaper that's been around for decades. And thank you for joining me. It's a delight to meet you, and congratulations. Look forward to the next time we see Indian Country Today and the future. So say hi to everybody. If you say hi to Mark, see Mark, say hi to him, and we're going to let you go. Thank you for the time and enjoy your vacation.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And we'll put this on SoundCloud. I'll send you a link. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Well, that